All right, how's it going, everyone? So I've said several times in some previous videos I made that the history of the US is cursed. And I could sit here and say all this stuff, but let me just read to you a really famous debate between Abraham Lincoln and Stephen A. Douglas. All right, I'm reading this from, this is Eric Foner. I read most of his textbook, like the first part of his textbook series on American history. So I read a good amount from like the very beginning to the Civil War, and I didn't finish it. But he also has a companion textbook with primary documents, so like first-hand accounts. And this comes from actually a newspaper, it looks like, from Columbus, Ohio. I'm just going to read it straight up. Like, I cannot do American history justice. But I can read the direct words. And the reason I'm making this video is because Abraham Lincoln is like seen as one of the best, if not the best, US president ever. And I agree, he was a very good president, but like incredibly racist, and like we just don't learn about this stuff in school. So let's talk about it. I mean, we have so many things named after Lincoln, I couldn't begin to tell you. He's on the penny, the $5 bill, right? I don't know. Lincoln Memorial. I mean, there's the state capital of Nebraska is Lincoln. Like, there's so much stuff named after Lincoln. So let me just read this to you. All right, so this is like a little intro section. So Americans' divisions over slavery were brought into sharp focus in 1858 in the election campaign that pitted Illinois Senator Stephen A. Douglas, the North's most prominent Democratic leader, against the then little-known Abraham Lincoln. And this is 1858. The Lincoln-Douglas debates, held in 7 Illinois towns and attended by tens of thousands of listeners, remain classics of American political oratory. Clashing definitions of freedom lay at their heart. To Lincoln, freedom meant opposition to slavery. Now, opposition to slavery does not mean freeing the slaves. It just means stopping the spread of it, and it was mostly political, as you'll see. Douglas insisted that the essence of freedom lay in local self-government. That's such a lukewarm take. Everyone said that since the beginning of time. A large, diverse nation could survive only by respecting the rights of each locality to determine its own institutions. He attempted to portray Lincoln as a dangerous radical whose positions threatened to degrade white Americans by reducing them to equality with blacks. Aww. Douglas was reelected, but the campaign created Lincoln's national reputation. Okay, here we go. This is Stephen A. Douglas beginning. He starts out with such a big heater. Just listen. Do you desire to strike out of our state constitution that clause which keeps slaves and free Negroes out of the state and allow the free Negroes to flow in and cover your prairies with black settlements? That's a question, sorry. Do you desire to turn this beautiful state into a free Negro colony in order that when Missouri abolishes slavery, she can send 100,000 emancipated slaves into Illinois to become citizens and voters on an equality with yourselves? If you desire Negro citizenship, if you desire to allow them to come into the state and settle with the white man, if you desire them to vote on an equality with yourselves and to make them eligible to office, to serve on juries and adjudge your rights, then support Mr. Lincoln and the Black Republican Party, who are in favor of the citizenship of the Negro. For one, I am opposed to Negro citizenship in any and every form. I believe this government was made on the white basis. I believe it was made by white men for the benefit of white men and their posterity forever, and I am in favor of confining citizenship to white men, men of European birth and descent, instead of conferring it upon Negroes, Indians, and other inferior races. Mr. Lincoln, following the example and lead of all the little abolition orators who go around and lecture in the basements of schools and churches, reads from the Declaration of Independence that all men were created equal, and then asks how can you deprive a Negro of that equality which God in the Declaration of Independence awards to him? He He and they maintain that Negro equality is guaranteed by the laws of God and that it is asserted in the Declaration of Independence. If they think so, of course, they have a right to say so and so vote. I do not question Mr. Lincoln's conscientious belief that the Negro is made his equal and hence is his brother. Laughter. But for my own part, I do not regard the Negro as my equal and positively deny that he is my brother or any kin to me, whatever. Okay, now comes Lincoln. Let's see how he responds to all that bullcrap. Now, gentlemen, I don't want to read at any great length, but this is the true complexion of all I have ever said in regard to the institution of slavery in the black race. This is the whole of it, and anything that argues me into this idea of perfect social and political equality with the Negro is but a specious and fantastic arrangement of words by which a man can prove a horse chestnut to be a chestnut horse. I will say here, while upon this subject, that I have no purpose directly or indirectly to interfere with the institution of slavery in the states where it exists. I believe I have no lawful right to do so, and I have no inclination to do so. I have no purpose to introduce political and social equality between the white and the black races. There's a physical difference between the two, which in my judgment will probably forever forbid their living together upon the footing of perfect equality, and inasmuch as it becomes a necessity that there must be a difference, I, as well as Judge Douglas, am in favor of the race to which I belong, having the superior position. I have never said anything to the contrary, but I hold that, notwithstanding all this, there's no reason in the world why the Negro is not entitled to all the natural rights enumerated in the Declaration of Independence, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I hold that he is as much entitled to these as the white man. I agree with Judge Douglas. He's not my equal in many respects, certainly not in color, perhaps not in moral or intellectual endowment, but in the right to eat the bread without leave of anybody else, which his own hand earns. He is my equal and the equal of Judge Douglas and the equal of every living man. Douglas, he tells you that I will not argue the question whether slavery is right or wrong. I tell you why I will not do it. I hold that under the Constitution of the United States, each state of this union has a right to do as it pleases on the subject of slavery. In Illinois, we have exercised that sovereign right by prohibiting slavery within our own limits. I approve of that line of policy. We have performed our whole duty in Illinois. We have gone as far as we have a right to go under the Constitution of our common country. It is none of our business whether slavery exists in Missouri or not. Missouri is a sovereign state of this union and has the right to decide the slavery question for herself, that Illinois has to decide it for herself. Good. Hence, I do not choose to occupy the time allotted to me discussing a question that we have no right to act upon. Well, that was a lot of hoopla just to say that. And Lincoln here? The real issue in this controversy, the one pressing upon every mind, is the sentiment on the part of one class that looks upon the institution of slavery as a wrong, and of another class that does not look upon it as a wrong. The sentiment that contemplates the institution of slavery in this country as a wrong is the sentiment of the Republican Party. It is the sentiment around which all their actions, all their arguments circle, from which all their propositions radiate. They look upon it as being a moral, social, and political wrong. And while they contemplate it as such, they nevertheless have due regard for its actual existence among us and the difficulties of getting rid of it in any satisfactory way and all the constitutional obligations thrown about it. Yet having a due regard for these, they desire a policy in regard to it that looks to its not creating any more danger. They insist that it should, as far as may be treated as a wrong, and one of the methods of treating it as a wrong is to make provision that it shall grow no larger. There you go, just restrict it, don't allow it to grow, but don't end it. They also desire a policy that looks to a peaceful end of slavery at some time as being wrong. That is the real issue. That is the issue that will continue in this country when these poor tongues of Judge Douglas and myself shall be silent. It is the eternal struggle between these two principles, right and wrong, throughout the world. They are the two principles that have stood face to face from the beginning of time and will ever continue to struggle. The one is the common right of humanity, and the other is the divine right of kings. It is the same principle in whatever shape it develops itself. It is the same spirit that says, you work and toil and earn bread and I'll eat it. Loud applause. No matter in what shape it comes, whether from the mouth of a king who seeks to bestride the people of his own nation and live by the fruit of their labor, or from one race of men as an apology for enslaving another race, it is the same tyrannical principle. I was glad to express my gratitude at Quincy, and I re-express it here to Judge Douglas, that he looks to no end of the institution of slavery. That will help the people to see where the struggle really is. It will hereafter place with us all men who really do wish the wrong may have an end. And whenever we can get rid of the fog, which obscures the real question, when we can get Judge Douglas and his friends to avow a policy looking to its perpetuation, we can get out from among them the class of men and bring them to the side of those who treat it as a wrong. Then there will soon be an end of it, and that end will be its ultimate extinction. Whenever the issue can be distinctly made and all extraneous matter thrown out so the men can fairly see the real difference between the parties, this controversy will soon be settled, and it will be done peaceably too. Do you understand how cursed the history of this country is? It gets worse. The more you look into stuff, when you read real primary documents and not the bullcrap that people say, when you read firsthand accounts of actual events, it is dumbfounding. And I just can't begin to express just how disappointed I am every time I learn about this stuff. I love animals too. And I was just reading about the cougar, right? The cougar used to be in all 50 states, the puma. And it is extinct from all but like 5 in any healthy numbers. And hunting is still allowed in almost every state except for California and Florida. It's ridiculous. Like it's so cursed. Why do people like to kill everything and each other? I don't understand, but this is like the reality of what we live in, and it's not our fault. I don't take blame for any of this crap. The reason being, I acknowledge it, but like I can't do anything about this. You know, I can just talk about it like I am now. I can spread awareness and explain why I say the things I do, but I mean, I'm mostly Irish and Swiss. Irish were enslaved themselves pretty much by the English. The English were so they were so terrible to the Irish people. Like, the Irish fought until the 1920s to get rid of the British from interfering directly with their lives. You understand? It goes deep. There's so many problems. But thank you so much for watching.